Welcome once again to We the People, a New Birth of Freedom. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, share this video and others with your friends, acquaintances, neighbors, relatives, and even your enemies. And hey, leave your comments below. I'll get back to you. It's been some time since I made a video. Been thinking about a lot of things and looking at history, looking at current events. And so now I'm ready to put all my thoughts together here just for a few minutes. I want to talk about how capable our government is in circumventing, violating, by treasonous actions, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. I want to show how capable they are at any given time to exercise their political power to completely spit in the face of our founding documents that are supposed to protect our lives, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. But I'll show you just very quickly how evil they can be. We know the atrocity that took place in regards to the subject of slavery. And it wasn't till Abraham Lincoln looked closely at those words in the preamble that all men were created equal. And he understood that men simply meant gender neutral. It meant race neutral. And so he stood firm on the interpretation of those words that all men, race, gender neutral, that all people, all humankind were created equal, that everyone should have access to the same protection of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that slavery should not be mentioned amongst free people. So finally, after a bloody, bloody war, the 13th Amendment was drafted and ratified, which abolished slavery in the United States of America and all of its jurisdiction. And there's a second part to that 13th Amendment. It abolished involuntary servitude. But let's watch as history unfolds. Women still had to struggle. The women's suffrage movement, they were wanting equal rights just to experience freedom, to live their lives and experience freedom and pursue happiness as anyone else. Why shouldn't they be able to? But political struggle, prohibition. Should people be free to consume alcohol, produce alcohol or not? Well, once the government realized how much money they could make on the tax of it, then they said, okay, we'll repeal prohibition and we'll make it legal to drink as long as we can get a piece of the pie. Okay. But you know, our founding fathers didn't have a problem with that. Isn't that strange? Let's pick it up a little bit. 1942 to 1945, under President Roosevelt. He signed an executive order when World War II was taking place that all those of Japanese descent, Japanese born, even though they were born here in America, they were actual American citizens. Let's sign an executive order. Let's have them arrested and placed in internment camps. As something they come up with the word internment. What were they interning for? They were arrested. They were put in prison camps. They were imprisoned. Not internment camps. because they were afraid of a Japanese uprising here in the United States because of the war with Japan. But they were American born. One of the greatest atrocities outside of slavery that's ever took place in this nation under the hands of political rulers who spit in the face of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Strange, isn't it? Strange. But was President Roosevelt tried for treason? Nope. Nope, he got away with it by executive order. They tried to do it to the Italians and Germans, but that didn't go over too well. But the Japanese had to suffer from about 1942 to 1945 in prison. American born, but because they carried the nationality of Japanese, they had to be locked away for fear of an uprising. Yeah, okay. Well, let's bring it up a little bit further. What about the mid-60s when Governor Wallace, who was a Democrat, he stepped to the podium on his inaugural day, becoming governor. He uttered these words: "I say segregation today, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever." He began to spew out his venom of prejudice, hatred for the black race. That was treasonous. He spit right in the face of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude. He said that blacks had to go to their school, that blacks had to go to use their restrooms, had to sit in a certain place on a bus, had to go to certain restaurants. They could not associate with the whites. Well, that's involuntary servitude. Why wasn't he tried for treason? I've often stated, and I mean it, had I been president of the United States, I would have strapped a gun on my hip, grabbed my Secret Service, National Guard, private militia, went down there, and stomped into his office and said, "Hey, I want this man arrested for treason. I want him tried for treason. He's not an American. He's not going to turn dogs loose on black people. He's not going to turn hoses loose and hose them. They can sit anywhere they want on the bus because the supreme law of the land, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude. What part of that can't you understand?" But he got away with it. Now, it's been said that he recanted towards the end of his days. Well, the damage was already done. He blasphemed. He spit in the face of our brothers who shed their blood to see that slavery was abolished and involuntary servitude was abolished. Another great atrocity that stained the flag of this nation. It's supposed to represent the freedom as it flies in the wind. It represents the freedom of all people that come to this continent. What about the wars that have taken place? Over 58,000 of our American soldiers died in the Vietnam War. For what? Ask yourself, for what? Read history. What was accomplished? U.S. planes were the ones that dropped Agent Orange down there in Vietnam, and our soldiers came back infected with it. What was accomplished by that war? When they came back here in the United States, they were ignored. They weren't even received. Some people say, well, some politicians say, well, that wasn't a war, it was a conflict. Really? Okay. They love to play with words as they find loopholes to justify their evil, their corruption, their diabolical schemes. Makes me sick to my stomach. Never trust the government. Yes, we need it. Our founding fathers realized, as well as we realize, we need a government for certain things. The government was initially designed to protect our lives, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. But as it's been said, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and there are tyrants that raise up all the time who they themselves want to experience all the freedom that they can acquire, but want to stamp out freedom for their slaves and their subjects and their subordinates. We have that same thing going on in this country today. There's always been a struggle for freedom, to enjoy life, to experience liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's always been a struggle. Blood has to be shed. The tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of American patriots and tyrants from time to time. But look at the Vietnam War. What was actually accomplished? Not very much, if anything. What about the Korean War? What about the war in Iraq? Billions times billions of dollars. What about the My Lai massacre? 400 unarmed citizens were killed by military personnel. Were they prosecuted? No. What about the 4 innocent students slaughtered at Kent State, the 2 at Jackson State, killed by police, unarmed? What about Ruby Ridge? What about the Waco massacre? On and on and on we could go. I'm just trying to tell you what the government is capable of in their reach for power, to push their agendas. That's what they're trying to do to the Second Amendment. There's a mandate at the end of that Second Amendment, and I'll get into it more in the next video. Simple words, but they're absolute. Shall not be infringed. What part of that do corrupt politicians not understand? Until next time, God bless you, and please be a true American.